Imagine it's 2070, the world is in ruins, relationships are run by lawyers, and the perfect girl is a robot programmed to love. This version of the future was imagined back in 1985, and actress Melanie Griffith said she hoped the movie would never come out. The irony is it actually did come out, no one just noticed. Today I'm gonna tell you about one of the weirdest and most prophetic movies of the 80s, Cherry 2000. It's a post-apocalypse, a western and a cyberpunk story all rolled into one. A movie that flopped at the box office, but turned out to be way more accurate than most sci-fi of its time. Why it was shelved for 2 years and how it predicted the age of Tinder. This is CineUnderground, where I talk about forgotten, failed, but strangely fascinated movies. And today we'll dive into a movie that predicted how people would look for love in the future, and why that future is already here. So, picture the year 2017, or rather the 2017 as imagined back in 1985. The main character, Sam Treadwell, comes home after a long day at work. At home, a beautiful girl is waiting, serving him dinner. Her name is Cherry 2000 and she's a robot. We find this out in the same scene when the characters start making love passionately right on the kitchen floor, forgetting to turn off the water in the sink. The water spills onto the floor, Cherry 2000 shots out and she breaks. Sam realizes Cherry meant more to him than just an ordinary droid, and he's willing to do anything to fix her. In movies of that time, the future was usually shown as scary and a bit grotesque. Mad Max established the image of the wasteland. Blade Runner created the dark neon-lit future. Short Circuit showed that with the right approach, robots can be friends. Against this backdrop came Steve DeJarnott's Cherry 2000, a movie that's hard to fit into usual categories. It combined elements of post-apocalyptic action film, a dystopia about future human relationships, and even a romantic comedy. Today, Cherry 2000 is remembered less as a box office hit and more as a strange prediction of a society where love and intimacy are replaced by contracts, technology, and substitutes. The movie was forgotten when it came out, but decades later it gained the status of a quirky gem, often revisited by researchers, journalists, and fans of unusual films. Director Steve DeJarnott mainly worked in television, and Cherry 2000 was his first feature film. DeJarnott's second feature film would be called Miracle Mile and later become a cult classic of the VHS era. I'll talk about that movie someday too. Looking ahead, I'll add that DeJarnott never became a big-name director, though you've probably guessed that already. After these two films, he only directed TV episodes and wrote scripts, mostly for television as well. Nowadays, the former director mainly writes short stories. DeJarnott finished work on Cherry in 1985, but Orion Pictures hesitated for a long time before releasing it. Test screenings showed that audiences were confused. It wasn't an action film like Mad Max or a comedy, but a strange hybrid of genres. The movie waited 2 years just to get released. This decision basically doomed it to obscurity. At least Melanie Griffith wasn't aware that the movie was already available to watch. So what exactly didn't the studio's bosses and focus groups like that kept the movie from hitting theaters? As I've already mentioned, the movie is set in the year 2017, and in fact many things in the movie turned out to be prophetic. The main character, Sam Treadwell, a typical yappy, goes off to find the parts he needs for his broken robot. He needs a chip which hasn't been made in years. The only place to find it is in the zone, the wild, lawless lands beyond civilization, in what used to be the Nevada desert. And so a successful suit-wearing manager hits into the wild west of the future, where gangs and off-road vehicles rule and only the strongest survive. His guide becomes a fearless mercenary named Edith, a girl who's never heard of safety rules and solves every problem with either a punch or a gunshot. The movie's world is full of details that can easily be read as a satire of 80s society. It's a society that has become extremely bureaucratic, where even human relationships are bogged down in a paperwork. In one scene after work, Sam goes with his friends to a club meant for singles. There, potential partners have to sign detailed contracts with lawyers, outlining all the terms of their relationship. By the way, one of the lawyers in that club is played by Lawrence Fishburne. Back then he wasn't as well known as he would be after playing Morpheus in The Matrix, but he had already appeared in Apocalypse Now, The Third Nightmare on Elm Street, and a few other notable films. This dating club scene looks funny, but at the same time, it early predicts a world where romance is replaced by legal and digital contracts. Just like the use of robots replacing wives, it hasn't exactly become real, but there's some truth in it too. There are more and more virtual substitutes for real relationships, and people keep using them more and more. The film prophetically shows a world where technology reproduces sexuality and emotions are replaced by functionality. And people in such a world end up feeling more lonely. When Sam and Edith go on their extreme trip, we already start to sense that the reason for this journey is in danger. Edith is the complete opposite of both the main character and his obedient robot wife, and Sam starts getting more and more fascinated by the wild girl. The story also reflects fear of women's independence and changing gender roles. I'll remind you that the film was made in 80s. Edith is a strong, armed, independent woman who physically saves the hero, while his ideals stay a plastic doll. In the end, the story works like a reversed romantic comedy. Instead of winning the perfect lady, the hero must give up the illusion and see the value of a real woman. Along the way, a connection slowly grows between the characters, which challenges the very idea of Cherry 2000. Is the man really looking for love in the form of a robot, or can he feel real emotion for another person? Finally, the film subtly plays with the mythology of the wastelands. The landscapes of Nevada here are not just scenery, but a symbol of inner crisis. The characters have to go through chaos and destruction to find a real connection. Or maybe I just want to give the film more meaning than it really has, and the wastelands here are just cool post-apocalyptic setting, inspired by Mad Max. Here I'll go back a bit to talk about the exposition of Cherry 2000. Probably it's a bit harder to set up the exposition in sci-fi films than in other genres. They need to balance creating a clear and rich world while not revealing all its secrets, leaving room for hints and imagination. If the universe of such a film is revealed too much, first, the flow of the world becomes obvious, and second, there's no room left for the audience's imagination, and the creators can play with our expectations. Cherry 2000 took a different path. Its exposition is very sparse, and in general, little is explained. In a film like Mad Max, we know that the world got this way because of an energy crisis. But in the world of Cherry 2000, we only know a little, and most of it we have to imagine ourselves. There are environmental problems. Civilization has died out beyond the city enclaves. There is overpopulation, most likely because people have to crowd into the cities. A crisis in human relationships caused by growing bureaucracy. From the main character's perspective, a successful manager, it might seem that the main problem in this world is social inequality. Sam has a pretty nice house full of gadgets and a robot, and then we find out he can afford to take a spontaneous trip outside the city, while people living closer to the zone are isolated from society. This chaos within the film also reflects the production process. After all, the director was originally supposed to be Irving Kershner, not Steven DeJarnett. At the time, he was at the peak of his fame after directing one of the Star Wars episodes, The Empire Strikes Back, and the last James Bond film with Sean Connery in the lead role, Never Say Never Again. But Kershner didn't reach an agreement with Orion Studios on several points. Although a $10 million budget was quite decent at the time, Kershner felt it wasn't enough to bring all his ideas to life. There were also disagreements about the ideas themselves. He wanted to make the film darker, closer to a serious dystopia about the dehumanization of society in the style of Blade Runner. But the studio wanted a lighter, more fun atmosphere with the action and romance. In the end, the studio got what it wanted by hiring the young and more flexible Steve DeJarnett. But even in such uncertainty, they managed to put together a decent team. It all started with a script written by Michael Almereyda, at the time making ends meet by writing scripts, and later becoming a notable figure in independent cinema. The music was done by Basil Poliduris, like probably a composer. He made music for many terrible films, but also had the chance to work on some truly great ones. Some of his biggest hits were Robocop, Lacey and Les Miserables with Liam Neeson and Uma Thurman. His soundtrack gives Cherry a sense of scale and adds an epic tone that the story itself might lack. The main star of the film was Melanie Griffith, who played the adventurous Edith. Later she said she hoped the film wouldn't be released, but to get the role, she even auditioned while pregnant. The producers even included in the contract the day by which she had to give birth to be able to appear in the film. As we know, the birth went according to plan. And the main character was played by David Andrews. Not a very well-known name, but the actor appeared in many popular films, just in smaller roles. For example, Terminator 3, Fight Club and Apollo 13. Later he focused on TV projects, mostly in supporting roles. Robert Starr also appeared in the film, an actor with a memorable appearance. He has a small role in the film, but I just wanted to mention him, and to remember his most famous film, Maniac Cop. A cult be great horror film. Write in the comments if you've seen it. And a small addition to the cast. The role of Cherry 2000 herself was played by Pamela Gidley. She can be remembered for her role as Teresa Banks in Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, the prequel to David Lynch's cult series. Cherry 2000 didn't make it to theaters, sat on the shelf for 2 years and then went straight to VHS. Several factors led to this, but the main one was that the film was hard to sell. Both the producers and even the director later said that Cherry 2000 was hard to position in a marketing campaign. It's a sci-fi, comedy, romance and even art house all at once. The practical logic is this: if a film can be confidently packaged for a mass audience, why invest big money in a wide marketing campaign and nationwide release? The studio's best option was to minimize risk and try its luck in the international or video market. In the end, the film was released in a limited run abroad, and in the USA it came out only in VHS. At that time, Orion Pictures had many other more important projects where spending money seemed more appropriate and promising. For example, around the same time they released Oliver Stone's famous film Platoon. So not releasing Cherry in theaters seems quite logical. It didn't happen because of one big mistake, but because of a mix of factors. Studio caution, the inability to clearly package the film for a single audience, and the commercial calculation that a wide release with heavy marketing was too big a risk. As a result, the film went into limited screening and straight to video. After all, being cult isn't about popularity. Today Cherry 2000 is often mentioned in lists of forgotten gems and cool movies from the 80s. People often call it an interesting sci-fi movie, a memory from the VHS days and a story about love that still feels real today. Of course, Cherry doesn't look like a modern movie. For a big budget of that time, the movie looks pretty simple, sometimes even lazy, which is especially bad for an action film. But the movie really hasn't lost its meaning or that old VHS charm. The movie strangely predicted 2017, the time of online dating, legal marriage contracts and romantic apathy. The film should also be seen in the context of cyberpunk. Even though it looks a bit like Mad Max, its themes are closer to Spike Jonze's Her. What's more, modern viewers see not just irony in the movie, but also a deeper philosophical meaning. The question of what matters more, the perfect image or a real person, feels even sharper in the age of artificial intelligence. Today, Cherry can also be seen as an important piece of pop culture history. It captures the fears and hopes of the late 80s, technological progress, the crisis of traditional relationships, anxiety about women's independence, and the desert as a symbol of the end of civilization. Yes, the movie isn't perfect. The acting is sometimes unconvincing, the story jumps between genres, and the special effects look outdated. But it's exactly this mix of styles and awareness that made it interesting for a new generation of viewers. Unlike the blockbusters of its time, the movie didn't try to be entertainment for everyone. It turned out to be an experiment, a failure at the box office, but rich in a cultural meaning. And that's why today its place isn't on the lists of best movies, but in the archives of film lovers. Today this strange but charming movie was watched with you by me, Max Chkonia. See you next time!